Radars on the other spinners at all on that particular area, that object that's up in the air?
It's up in the air.
Affirmative.
What's the altitude about?
I don't know, probably right around 30,000 or so, and it's with a strobe, it starts from going counterclockwise, and the length is unbelievable.
Arcade 5 in the next 2 to 3 minutes, be looking off to your right side. If you see anything about 30,000 feet, one aircraft reported something. It wasn't a weather balloon or anything. It was a long, white-looking thing with a strobe on it. Let me know if you see anything out there.
Any traffic up on Upland right now?
I've got something passing off here at 9 o'clock in about
Meu Deus! Ai, Jesus!
In the early hours of January the 20th, 1996, a number of UFOs were reported in the skies above central Brazil. Some of them were captured on home video. Then, in a bizarre twist, reports started emerging that one of these UFOs had actually crashed near the town of Varginha, and that the local military had recovered some alien bodies. For many in the UFO community, this was the most significant event since the Roswell crash of 1947.
We know we have a lot of evidence here, and there is a huge cover-up in Brazil since January 1996. I do believe we were visited by alien creatures who were captured by the militaries, and I want to know what happened to these creatures. I think the whole world wants to know if these creatures are still in Brazil, and definitely what happened to them.
It's just unbelievably undeniable. Undeniable. Now, it doesn't matter what the military say, they are hiding. They are hiding. They do have captured aliens in Brazil alive.
And that should have been the end of the so-called incident in Brazil, except that a few weeks later, another alien creature was reported in the town of Varginha, this time at the zoo. An old lady spotted a creature very similar to the one seen by the other witnesses.
Eu não vou afirmar que vi o ET. Eu tinha saído no alpendre para fumar. E vi uma coisa muito feia, os olhos vermelhos, grande esbugalhado. E a cor dele era marrom escuro, era muito feio. Animal não era, isso eu tenho certeza.
What she told us is the creature had some light coming from the eyes because the place was all dark at night. But she could see the face here, a small nose, a little slit as a mouth, only because some light was coming from the eyes of the creature, no pupils. And all of a sudden, the creature was not there anymore. She went inside the place, called her husband and said, listen, we gotta get out of here.
Of course, no one knows what she saw or what she thought she saw. But it's interesting that in the days before this sighting, several animals had died suddenly at the zoo from unknown toxic poisoning.
Muito estranho que logo após o aparecimento dessa criatura, nós estávamos com um problema dentro do zoo em morte de animais que tinham ocorrido desde fevereiro. Tá? Eu perdi 5 animais e sem explicação nenhuma científica, porque o laudo técnico diz que morreu de não sei. E não é comum. Eu sou diretora desse zoológico há 7 anos e nunca tive um caso desse.
So had another alien creature hidden itself away in the zoo, or did Mrs. Klepf misidentify some other animal?
Got a lot of witnesses in this case. I don't think that people are making this up. What I do think we have to check out very carefully is the possibility that we are dealing with a series of events which have been, as it were, linked together, perhaps by people who are very keen to come to particular conclusions, and that we're dealing perhaps with nothing more exciting than a series of misidentifications and people putting perhaps quite extraordinary explanations on events which may be rather mundane.
The American journalist and UFO investigator Linda Moulton Howe compiled a detailed report on the incident in Brazil. She's convinced that not only did aliens crash down in Brazil in January 1996, but that both the Brazilian and the United States government deliberately covered it up.
They know and have been covering up for at least 50 years that extraterrestrial biological entities are interacting with our planet, have access to backyards, to pastures, and to even bedrooms in the human abduction syndrome. Not wanting people to be aware of that because they're afraid of mass panic, I can understand up to a point. But everything in me says, life teaches you, knowledge gives you strength, ignorance weakens you. I think the entire planet deserves the truth, because whatever the extraterrestrial biological entities are doing, there has to be a reason for a variety of intrusions that have been happening in Mexico and South America in a very aggressive nature. But what is it? That's what we all need to find out.
Second away, poison.
She believes that the Brazilian Roswell has far greater implications beyond Virginia, and maybe even provides the key to what aliens want with our planet.
Biggest issue for me after 2 decades that haunts me to this day is what is the motive of extraterrestrial biological entities interacting with this planet. And in any given story and any given eyewitness, you can find yourself swinging, oh, it must be horrible. Oh, it is so good and spiritual, they've healed people. But the government is nervous, and you find yourself swaying. Is it good? Is it bad? Is it neutral? Is it benign? Is it, what is it? And I've begun to realize that probably the most dangerous thing that any of us could do is try to box it in any category, because right now, I don't know that that's possible, not from a human point of view. My own personal feeling at the year 1997, and that's what it falls into a category, because I can't prove any of this. But it's a feeling or a growing sense that the complexity, the profound level of complexity of what we are dealing with, a non-human intelligence that appears, as government insiders have told me, 1 million years in advance in technological achievement than we are. That's incomprehensible. What they're able to do with gravity, with electromagnetic spectra, it's beyond my ability to comprehend or anybody's ability.
Intriguingly, the Brazilian Roswell, as it's become known, is not the only close encounter of the fourth kind that's been reported. There are dozens of detailed files, many of which remain classified, containing eyewitness reports and even photos of alleged alien creatures.
I'm convinced beyond doubt that we have recovered aircraft, alien vehicles, that we have made contact with aliens, that we are communicating with them in some way or form, and that we have vehicles and bodies in preservation.
I take a clear-cut, unambiguous stand. One, the evidence is overwhelming that planet Earth is being visited by intelligently controlled extraterrestrial spacecraft. In other words, some UFOs, underline the some 18 times, are extraterrestrial spacecraft. Most are not. I don't care about those. Secondly, we're dealing with a cosmic Watergate. That means that some few people within the governments of the United States, Canada, Britain, and undoubtedly other countries have known since July 1947, when at least 2 crashed flying saucers and several alien bodies were recovered in New Mexico, that indeed some UFOs are extraterrestrial spacecraft. 3, none of the arguments made against the first 2 conclusions by a very small but very noisy group of negativists, as I call them, the debunkers, stand up under careful scrutiny.
I think that undeniably and unquestionably we have been and are being visited by extraterrestrials, but quite what their motives are and quite what's going on, the jury's still out on that one. We need to know, though.
Based on 25 years or so of research and history and sighting analysis and doing case investigations, film photography, still photography, video, and so on, I've concluded that they are here, whoever they are, wherever they came from, whatever they're doing. Other intelligences are messing around on our planet. And I guess it's up to society to realize that and come up with some sort of a response before it's too late.
I think the major reason for reticence to discuss this subject publicly and for the extremely high level of secrecy is embarrassment. I don't think it's so much that they think the public is going to panic, rather that they, the officials in charge of this information, are going to look rather impotent were it known that there are extraterrestrials invading our airspace against whom we have inadequate defense.
What really happened in Virginia is still a mystery. On one hand, there are dozens of reliable witnesses, both civilian and military, who swear blindly that they saw alien creatures that night. There's an eyewitness who saw the crash site in flames, and there's a soldier who claims to have guarded the creature inside the hospital. On the other hand, the Brazilian military and fire department deny anything happened and that the witnesses are just misidentified dwarves.
I'm pleased to see that, partly because of Roswell as a precedent, that people are taking such an event seriously. Is this perhaps, I don't know of any previous cases where beings like this were seen before, maybe this is a new step in what's going on.
I think we're just having the biggest opportunity to prove that the mankind had some contact with alien creatures. The Roswell incident is a very important one, but it happened 50 years ago. This is recent. We have a lot of information from military sources, civilian sources, I mean fresh information. So I think this is going to be a very important situation where we can prove that alien beings had really visited our planet.
They can hide it from us forever because we already know so much about it. We already know the names of the people involved. We know the details of the operation of capture, of transportation of the creatures, everything. They can't hide much from us.
I think one must remember that witnesses are fallible. People make mistakes, people misidentify things, particularly if they see them under unusual conditions. So always, I would say to people, look for the prosaic explanations first. Look for the misidentification of some sort of military exercise going on. Look perhaps for the idea that you might have had some space debris re-entering the Earth's atmosphere, giving rise to quite a spectacular display. Consider again the entity report, that you might simply be dealing with some wild animal, startled and perhaps again, seen by people that weren't particularly used to seeing this sort of creature. There are many, many things which perhaps individually wouldn't have given rise to this great incident, but when perhaps just taken together led to an extraordinary series of coincidences which frankly gave us a situation where people have got things wrong.
Rather than trying to close off and reject, I'm trying to stay as open-minded as I can on what could the motives be. If survival is a key issue, and that all of the information is saying our own survival as a species could be tied with whatever these extraterrestrial biological entities are involved with, our discovering what the issue is seems to me to be paramount, and I think that the government of the United States has been working overtime trying to understand that. If survival is the big bottom line answer, what is it that the extraterrestrials know that the rest of us don't?
The whole attitude about space, about beings from elsewhere, about anybody coming here, has changed drastically. People, senators, congressmen, and the president are fed up with this huge amount of classified, 1.5 billion pages it's been estimated. One of the good things about the Varginha case is that presumably almost all the witnesses are still alive and will be for some time. So we've got some hope here. If major effort is expended to get more witnesses, especially the insiders, the guys at the hospital, the military guys who grab and so forth, then there's certainly a good chance we can find those people.